Welcome, everybody. This is Still a Part of Us. This is a place where our moms and dads that have lost babies get to share the birth story of their children. And so we're so grateful that you got to come here today. And we're grateful that we are joined by Taylor. We were able to hear her wonderful story of her sweet Hazel. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, please go check out her birth story in a different episode. So Taylor, we're excited to have you here. Before we get started, I do want to just put out there a couple of things that we're going to be talking a little bit about, obviously stillbirth and about pregnancy after loss. And this conversation will be full of triggers. So please keep yourself healthy. So if this is not a good time to listen to this, then please do not. We want to make sure that, like I said, you are healthy and safe. And lastly, if you find yourself a part of this club that nobody wants to be a part of, consider subscribing because we can find each other and help each other out by sharing our stories. So just hit that subscribe button or subscribe on your podcast player, wherever you find us at. But Taylor, thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated and really enjoyed hearing your story of your sweet Hazel and everything that you were able to do with her in the short time that you had her.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I mean, what you guys do, sharing people's stories is so important because it plays a big part in people's healing process, I think.
Yeah, we hope so. It's helped us. So we hope it is helping somebody out there. As a little bit of background, how long ago was Hazel born at the time of this recording? Just so everybody has a little bit of context.
So Hazel was born May 19th of 2020, and it is coming up on May 21. So it has almost been a year now.
So we're just shy a year, and she was stillborn at 36 weeks and of unknown causes. There was nothing particularly conclusive from autopsy results and such. So it's been 10 months basically since Hazel left you guys. How has that last year looked? And I want to actually ask, especially in light of the pandemic, like you had her in the middle of the pandemic and then you had to basically go mourn by yourself. I'm not sure how that looked. How did that look for you guys?
Yeah, so fortunately, we were able to have a funeral service for her. So that was really helpful in our journey of healing. What COVID has really affected and had really affected at the time was we couldn't really go out and do things, together or with other people. We couldn't really surround ourselves with a bunch of other supportive friends and family physically because you couldn't gather in
Right.
groups. You weren't even supposed to gather with anyone outside your household.
Yeah.
So that made it really difficult, especially in the early part of our grieving, because we weren't really supposed to have all that stuff or,
Mhm.
just can't do things that are typically normal, like go out to eat and things like that. Couldn't really travel, didn't really want to stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
So we didn't really get to do a lot of those things that could have been helpful in our healing because of COVID.
Yeah. Which is so crummy. It just is like, let's kick you while you're down a little bit more, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just awful. You are a nurse, and were you able to take some time off of work after Hazel was born?
Yeah. So I actually only took 2 weeks.
Mm.
It wasn't from the pressure of anybody, but the week that she was born and we had her funeral all in the same week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following week, we took to just grieve. And we actually took a road trip out to Turner Falls, Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
and did a little bit of hiking, which I didn't think would be a problem like a week postpartum, but it was. I
Yeah.
was just really out of shape. And hiking stairs was not the best time in the world. But yeah, so we got to do that. And then after that, it just felt like I wanted some sense of normalcy.
Mm.
And I also just wanted to get over the back to work awkwardness.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to get all the awkward stares and the sad looks and the
Yeah.
any questions,
Mm-hmm.
and also wanted to get the patient process started because I worked in a outpatient clinic at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
so everybody had seen me pregnant, and then I was gone, and then I was back, and I was not pregnant,
Yeah.
and they didn't know me, on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
So all the, how's the baby?
Yeah.
I wanted to get that ball rolling and out of the way as soon as possible.
Sooner than later. Now, did your manager or nurse manager or anything help with that process? Like, did you tell them what was happening and that they could kind of talk about it or?
Yeah. So Tad and I were both very out about it, like
Mm-hmm.
on social media.
Yeah.
So everybody that was real close to us knew because I in detail explained what exactly happened. So nobody would wonder. And then as far as my job, I did call my boss, and she said people were asking if I had the baby or what's going on. And I said, please tell them,
Yeah.
please. Like, I don't want to tell them
Yeah.
over and over and over. So if you could do that before I get back, that would be great.
That would be super helpful. Yeah. And so she or he did that for you.
Yeah, she did. She went ahead and told everybody. So that helped. I didn't have anybody wondering when I came back into the office.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. You're like that awkward getting back to work phase. It really is an awkward phase because people don't know what to do. They just are so concerned about it and want to say the right thing and be nice and helpful and everything. So, and if they don't know, then they're expecting it to be happy news, right? Like they're always expecting it to be like, oh, that's wonderful. And it's the opposite, a complete opposite. And it's just awful.
That was what was so hard with patients because they didn't
Yeah.
know. And they'd be like, how's the baby? And I'd be like, well, she was stillborn. I'm not going to
Right.
lie about it. And so I say that, and then they're like, oh, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I shouldn't have asked. And I'm like, you should have. Everybody asks
Yeah.
that. Like, it's totally normal. And, you know, yeah, it was really hard, but you don't need to feel like you're a horrible person for
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, it's like nice to be able to talk to them. It just is, yeah, it's like rough for the people that are asking and they don't know. It kind of blindsides them, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming Tad also took some time off, probably similar to what you did as well.
Yeah. He was working from home
Mm,
because of COVID.
yeah.
And so that was a real struggle. He took off the same amount of time. So he went back to work when I did
Mm-hmm.
after 2 weeks. But it was really hard for both of us, for him, because he was like completely isolated. Like,
Right.
at least I went to work and I was surrounded by like supportive coworkers and distractions and people and all this stuff. But he was at home
Yeah.
completely alone all day long, and he really struggled, and it was really hard for me to leave him at home every day
Yeah.
for the first several weeks.
Oh yeah. This last year has been it's been a real beast because of that. So hard. I'm like, oh, it just makes me, because my husband stayed home with our daughter when I went back to work and it was hard for him too. Like it's just hard to be alone, especially after something so earth shattering as losing a child. What do you guys like to do, or what do you like to do specifically, Taylor, that helps you think about Hazel or kind of remember her or mourn her or celebrate her?
So we, like most people that I know that have lost, have like basically a little shrine to her.
Yeah.
We like to sit there and, go over her things, like the little outfit she wore in the hospital, or like her little footprints, or I'll look at all her pictures. So we like to do that. We'll go out and decorate, at the cemetery, buy her. I love buying her like new flowers, and I see, what's the brightest thing I can get out there. We have a lot of light up stuff that lights up at night. And then there's the album of Josh Garrels, which I'd have to look up which album it is. Tad would know off the top of his head because he's a music guru.
Uh-huh.
But that album that we listened to while we were driving her in her casket to the cemetery is like a really special album. And it really reminds me of her. And normally I listen to K-Love on my work computer, which is like Christian radio.
Uh-huh.
They are doing a like fundraiser-a-thon that lasts like a week, and they just talk way more than they play music. So I have been having to listen to the music on my phone, and one of those albums is that Josh Garrel's album. So in the midst of playing all the different stuff on my phone, it played that album, and it just really like touched me. Like that album will forever and always be Hazel's album.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that part of your birth story and during the funeral. I just pictured you guys actually just driving and listening to that, and Hazel's on your lap in her little casket, and just it being kind of quiet and just really peaceful. Like I had a really vivid picture when you described that. I thought it was so sweet and tender. I was like, oh, and the fact that you guys came out of the car just with smiles and just feeling at peace, it was nice probably to have that after such a tumultuous week. So
Yeah, that was definitely probably the highlight of the entire week.
yeah, having that little time. So it sounds like you guys got the handprints and the feet prints molds. So was it just the feet print or the hand? Did you get hands as well?
We just got feet.
Okay.
And it wasn't like a mold, it was like an impression.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then you guys were able to dress her in a couple of your outfits that you brought because you are, like you said, you're a type A that had her bag packed at 36 weeks, which was great. Good job, you. But you were able to dress her in a few of the outfits you brought, and then you were able to also bring it home with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we buried her in a swaddle,
Mm-hmm.
which we're really happy about that we did that. But one of the outfits that the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep took pictures of her in, we have that little outfit.
That's awesome. I don't know if you did this, but I would smell like I would actually hold on to it and smell it, and just it reminded me of my son. So I don't know if you do that too.
Yeah.
But
We did that too, for sure.
Yeah.
And there was she had in her little cuddle cot is what they called it, the little cold bassinet thingy.
Yeah.
They had like a crocheted pink blanket that she laid on. And so we have that too. And yes, I loved, the smell of everything. And of course the smell fades and you're like, no. And of course, if you put it like in a plastic bag, then it would have smelled like plastic. But
yeah.
yeah, the little crocheted blanket was really special. And then one of Tad's aunts, that's actually like his second mom, I believe her mom crocheted a whole bunch of blankets and gave them to us to take to the hospital for any other babies.
Oh, that is so sweet. That's really nice. And I don't know, paying it forward to somebody that might be having a really terrible day also.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. You had her on May 19th, and I think maybe Mother's Day had passed already by then.
Yeah.
How did Father's Day go, and some of the other holidays? How have you guys dealt with those holidays, and how did you guys handle those?
Mother's and Father's Day has always been really hard because our first pregnancy, we miscarried in May. And I can't remember the exact day it was, but it was definitely the same week that we lost Hazel.
Yeah.
And so both times, I had a Mother's Day that we were anticipating a baby.
Yeah.
And then we went on to not have that baby. And then, of course, followed up by Tad's Father's Day, we had already lost our babies.
Yeah.
And so Mother's and Father's Day tend to be very hard for us. We still, definitely like try to honor each other on those days because we're still very much, even though we don't have any living children, we're still very much mom and dad.
Yep, that's true.
Other holidays, I don't know that they're as hard as Father's Day, but it definitely feels like there's something missing because you imagine, we would have had little ones running around, or, they would have been like trying to open the gifts or they would have been hunting Easter eggs.
Yeah.
And you think about that stuff on the holidays, it makes you miss them a little more than usual.
Yeah. Something about the holidays. That's tricky. Have you guys thought about what you're going to do for Hazel's first birthday? I know that's coming up.
Yes. So, we both took off work on her birthday.
Good.
It's kind of hard because we found out that she had passed the day before. And then the next day she was born. And so we were going to obviously choose to celebrate her birthday, that day before, I mean, we chose to take off her birthday instead of the day before, but that day before is going to be really hard. I've already informed people at work that I'm going to be extremely unproductive on that day, most likely.
Yes. Yeah.
For her birthday, we plan to we'll probably listen to her album and, of course, drive out there. And I think we'll probably release balloons,
Mhm.
probably maybe with notes or like birthday cards on
Oh,
them.
yeah.
And I might buy some like sugar cookies that have her name or something like that, little treat. And then I'm hoping that we finally have her headstone by her birthday. It has taken a long, long time because they showed us all the different stone options
Yeah.
and we picked this one that was like really unique. It's kind of like a baby pink color.
Oh, like the stone is a baby pink color?
Yeah.
Oh,
And we were like, oh, it'll stand out and
yeah.
she would love it because it's like baby pink. No, I mean, who knows? She might have loved black. I don't know. But we really liked that stone. And it turns out that like nobody carries that stone anymore. And
Oh,
so they had to, even though they had samples of it, they had to end up ordering it like from somewhere
far
in
away.
Georgia. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so with COVID and delivery times, it has taken a long, long time to get this stone, but it is finally in, and
Great.
we are working with them on the design. And as soon as they have it like engraved and whatnot, they can go place it at the cemetery. So I'm really crossing my fingers that it'll be there by her birthday,
Oh,
like as a birthday present.
that would be so great. So you chose out the color, which is, I mean, kind of fun to have that very specific pink color, I guess. And so, and you haven't designed like the font or what's going to go on it quite yet, or do you guys have a pretty good idea of what you're going to do?
We have a tentative design
Mm-hmm.
that we have out. They just need to like put it all together and do like final drafts of it so that we can give it a thumbs up and they can put it on there.
Awesome. That's exciting. I found designing the headstone to be very therapeutic because it felt like we were doing something, like making her something, making our son something. So, and we're like, we're spending money on you. So, like, I know it might not the way I imagined it, but we were spending money on, spending time and money on him. So, I hope that
Right.
is good for you guys too as you finalize that process. But it is. I hope it gets there before her birthday.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so a couple of things that you mentioned before. You said that you and Tad kind of have gotten even tighter than you were before because of your loss. I'm curious how you guys have handled the loss and has it been different? How has it looked for you each?
Yeah. So I feel like I was maybe more of the strong one to start out. I held it together more. And Tad was just kind of an emotional mess for a long time. And I think that might have been like the nurse personality in me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're not okay. And I need to take care of you. And I need to be okay, even though I'm really not.
Yeah.
But he's like, you need to let it all out too. Don't need to hold it in and slowly eke it out over time. He chose to have his emotions like kind of all at once.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had a really rough time still, even though I was trying to be strong. And
So did you end up letting it all come out at some point in time?
yeah, I think I kind of let it out in spurts.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, I was so attached to him. I don't know why, but I was so attached to him. And like, I remember it was one of the first days that all the people had left
Mhm.
and it was just him and he was going to go work out. And I stayed at the house. And just when he went to go work out, like I bawled on the floor the entire time he was gone.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't handle being by myself. But we were just really open to each other
Mhm.
and really there for each other and always checking in. And it was a really close time in our relationship because we were so open with how we were feeling and we just had a lot of open communication and it was really good. And it helped because of COVID, we were pretty much all each other had,
Yeah.
especially in person. Of course, people were, texting us and messaging and there for us in that way, but actually physically there, it was just me and him.
Yeah. You had each other and that's about it. I
Yeah.
but it sounded like it was good also. Kind of forced you to rely on each other a little bit more for that support.
Yeah. One of the first people that I reached out to, she was a coworker of mine
Mm-hmm.
and she reached out to me. It's funny how you don't know anybody who has lost, especially like had a stillborn. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But then like you have one and then all these people come out of the woodwork and they're like, I had a stillborn or my sister or my cousin.
Yeah.
Like all these experiences come out and they're like, if you want to talk, and I'm like, I didn't even know this happens this often because nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about
Um,
it.
but it makes you feel like you're not so alone because when it first happens, you're like, surely I'm the only person in the universe that this has ever happened
Yeah.
to.
And nobody's going to
Um,
know what I'm feeling right now because it's horrible. And yeah.
yeah. And so it became really important to me to talk to those people that said that they've been through it because at the beginning, I was just like, do you ever feel happy again? Like, I really honestly can't imagine ever being happy again.
Yeah.
And the people that reached out to me that are like, this, happened to me and we can talk about it. I'm like, well, they're happy. Like I didn't even know that happened to them, but they somehow survived it. So I need to figure out how
Yeah.
because I really don't know how at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
So that's like the first people that I reached out to. And it was a couple that they already have boys that are maybe preteen and teen
Mm-hmm.
years. And they have 3 living. And then they had one, and he wasn't stillborn, but he passed away shortly after he was
Oh,
born. And they came over and shared their story with us at our house. And that was like the first step
yeah.
was hearing their story and how they got through it. And she brought me a bunch of books to read, and that was really helpful in our journey.
That's good. Having somebody that you're like, oh, you get it. And you're right. Like, I think it's interesting. You're like, well, they're happy. I didn't realize that they even had a loss. So maybe there is the kind of a light at the end of the tunnel where we'll be able to get through this. Like, it just doesn't feel that way at the very beginning where you're just like, there's no hope. Like, it's just
Yeah.
awful. It's just awful.
You're like, am I gonna like cry every day for the rest of my
Yeah.
life? Because that's how it feels like it's gonna happen.
hmm The trend is that way right now. It's not looking
Right.
good.
And then eventually you're like, wow, I went one day without crying this week.
Yeah.
Like progress.
Yeah. And you gotta celebrate those little things because yeah, it's okay to not cry every single day. And it's great when you take a shower and it's good when you have some food that's healthy. And like it was those little things that helped us get through that first little bit because it was just like, yeah, you just don't feel like anything's gonna be okay ever again. So
Right.
it's just so bleak, I guess. Taylor, I am curious. You've actually mentioned a few things already before, kind of just a little bit in passing. Tell me some things that people did and said that were helpful to you as you've been mourning the loss of your daughter this last 10 months. It sounds like this one couple that had lost, they came over and just shared their story, and that was helpful. What other things did people do and say that really helps you, especially in that kind of time right afterward? Because people want to know what helps, like what has helped you that maybe they could help somebody that in their life.
There's another friend of ours, and she was expecting a baby a month or 2 months after
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting.
Okay.
So she was still pregnant at the time, but she just came over and she didn't like come talk to us or anything. She just left a bag on our door, and it was a yellow bag and it was full of yellow things. Like I think it had yellow Starbursts and a yellow notepad and a yellow loofah and just everything in there.
Yellow.
It had a yellow squishy ball
Uh-huh.
thing that Tad loved to stick to our ceiling. Um, and in it was like a little note that, something about it being a hard time. And this was like a sunshine bag to like bring a little ray of sunshine. And that was just so, so cute. And
Yeah.
it was a little ray of sunshine in our little storm cloud that we were under.
Yeah.
And so that was just something so small and simple that was like really appreciated and did bring us a little bit of happiness.
That's a really cute idea. I'm like, I've not heard that before. That's really sweet.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if she got it from somewhere, but I was like, this is really creative.
Yeah. And very unexpected. That's kind of the fun thing is like, oh, just showed up on our door. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That was a favorite thing that happened. And then also just, everybody that would be sending us messages or calling us and saying, we're thinking of you, praying for you. And if you need anything, just the people that constantly reached out.
Yeah.
Made us feel like, at the time, I was so overwhelmed with everything. Like, I didn't really respond. I had like a Facebook Messenger full of messages, and I read them, but I didn't respond. It was just so overwhelming. And like, if you're a person that reaches out to someone that has a loss and they don't say anything at first, don't be weirded out or think that you said something wrong or something.
Yeah.
They might just be processing. They might have 50 other messages.
Yeah.
The messages that I received, it was all appreciated. And I think eventually I responded to all or most of them, but just in the initial time, I just read them and that's all I could do.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Because you just don't, and there's too many. It sounds like you guys are well loved and well known in your group of family and friends, and so I'm sure you had so many messages that you wanted to, but you just can't. And I think and I was going to say, if you are a lost mom or a lost dad, I think it's okay. You get a pass. Like you just had like a super devastating thing. It's okay not to respond back to a text message. We got so many messages also. And I was just like, I just can't, I don't even have the emotional capacity to like get up in the morning. So I can't even respond to a text. You can't expect me to respond to a text message. So I think that's some good advice of don't get weirded out. It's not, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just, we've got a lot on our plate.
I remember those days of like waking up in the morning and you like crack open your eye and you're like, am I still alive? I guess so. Okay.
Okay, I guess let's do this, I guess. Yeah. And is there anything that, before I forget, because I think this is a good point to make also. I had somebody send me a text message during that time and they told me that they were so sorry and that they were thinking about us, and they said, you don't need to respond to this text message. And that was nice. So if that helps anybody in the future, it's nice to just have another out. So is there anything that anybody said or did that you would maybe recommend not doing or saying to somebody that has just had a loss as a way to inform and to help others in the future?
This could totally just be a me thing, but I struggled with funeral flowers.
Oh.
Like so many flowers. And then I'm surrounded by these beautiful flowers that are going to die. And that just made me feel worse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to be surrounded by dead flowers.
Yeah. No, totally. I think you are not totally alone in that, actually. So maybe a living plant? Would that be better?
Yeah. Like my grandma gave me a rose bush.
Oh.
And it was kind of special because she's like really big into rose bushes. But yeah, plants are cool because that gives you something, like in grief, it gives you something to do. Then I planted this. Okay, my mom helped me plant this rose bush because I'm like not a plant person.
Yeah.
But then it's like become my little hazel bush.
Yeah.
And I like super take care of it. And when I was grieving, like, I'm like, okay, well, I have to get up and like water my bush, And so it gives you something to do,
Yeah.
other than just sit there and wallow. You're like, oh, well, I have a plant to take care of.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Exactly. I think just that little bit of, oh yeah, okay, I can get up. I can go do that at least. At the very least, I've done one thing. And it's good emotionally, I think. Plants are good, right?
yeah.
Anything else that you would recommend not saying either or doing?
Like, I can't really pinpoint like anything someone said to me that I was offended by,
Mm-hmm.
like, or thought or wish they wouldn't have said. I mean, I've heard the kind of cliche things that some people think that they need to say to lost parents, and I'm like, "Ooh, yeah." But I don't think anybody said anything like that to me. I just felt bad because I felt like nobody knew really what to say and they didn't want to say the wrong thing. And so maybe they'd say like nothing at all. But I'm like, no, I want to talk about it. And it came to the point where nobody would ask me
Oh,
about her or whatever. So I'm like, I'm just bringing her up. It's happening. Like, I'm talking about my daughter,
yeah.
whether you like it or not. Like, I don't think they minded it,
No. Yeah.
but I was like, this is happening because I want to talk about her.
Yeah. Do you think that people are usually they take that as a cue of like, oh, okay, I can talk about, I can ask questions or talk about them.
I think that, I mean, I pretty much come out with anything they'd want to know. But I don't know. I still think some people are so like reserved, especially in this area, like in Kansas and
Mm-hmm.
in the Midwest. Like they just really don't want to say anything wrong. And so even though I brought it up, they're like, well, maybe I shouldn't prod. But it's like, no, please do prod. I'm ready for the prodding.
I will give you permission to do so. I think the general consensus is that we want to talk about our kids. So like, it's okay if you ask. And if it's not, then I think we'll generally tell you, wouldn't you say? If you're like,
Yeah,
I'm not
I
okay
mean,
today to talk about her.
I just feel like if someone, I don't know, I don't even know what they could say that because I know that if they said something like super off, they probably didn't mean to.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be that upset. I'd just be like, no.
About that.
Oh, no.
Oh. And speaking of kind of just talking to people about Hazel, did you do any grief support groups or anything? I know that because of COVID, a lot of those were shut down or they went virtual. Did you attend any grief groups or see counselors or anything like that to kind of talk it through?
So Tad didn't. He attempted to, but he didn't click with the person.
Yeah.
Uh, but Tad is like a really deep thought intellectual type.
Hmm.
And so he probably talked it through in his own brain.
Oh,
But honestly, he kind of was therapy for me a lot of the times. Like if I would have a certain thought and I would like bring this emotion or thought up to him and he'd be like, okay, you need to think about it like this, Taylor, or, kind of redirect me. And he was always like, once he got through his like emotional stage,
hmm.
he was like, I've got this figured out and this is the way I'm going to think about it. And this is the way you should think about it too. And it was actually really helpful. He helped keep me together after he was together for sure. But I did go to counseling and I still go to counseling. And that's been really helpful, especially because the one thing that Tad really didn't want to hear from me, and the thing that I struggled probably the most with was guilt,
Mm,
feeling like I'm a nurse, I should have known, or she was in my body. I should have known something was wrong. I should have somehow saved her, and working through that guilt was really hard and
yeah.
really important.
Yeah. Because just feel like your body failed you or you failed Hazel. Like that is very important to kind of work through because as you said, there was nothing in any autopsy or reports or anything but you just can't help but feel that way sometimes. So
Yeah.
anything that,
After I
oh, go ahead.
worked through that, my therapist was like trying to get me into a more positive direction. And she's like, you need to say positive things to yourself. Like, I love my body, or I'm grateful for the gift of my body, or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually really mad at my body right now. So I don't think I'm on board with that. And
I'm
she's
not
like,
there yet.
yeah. She's like, well, that's a problem. You need to learn to love it.
Is there anything that kind of stood out to you as you were trying to work through that guilt? Was there anything that she said that helped shift that for you?
I just had to work through like a lot of realities that there was really nothing I could do. Even thinking back, if I was doing kick counts, I mean, you don't sit there and do kick counts every single hour of every
Mm-mm.
single day.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of pay attention, and that's what I did. And I mean, there's really nothing that I could have done differently. And then also the fact that the doctor at the hospital, she said, this must have been something that happened suddenly. Like, you don't just have a normal pregnancy and then
Yeah.
this happened. Like, something random, unpreventable happened quickly.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's no way I could have prevented that.
Yeah.
But I just have to, tell myself that there wasn't anything I could do. And then telling myself, like, and Tad told me this. He's like, you were a good mom. Like, being a nurse, I did everything perfectly. Like, I didn't drink pop. I didn't eat soft serve ice cream or lunch meat or anything like that.
Yeah.
I didn't try to lift anything ever.
Yeah.
Like, I was just extra precautious. It was COVID. So I was bringing home groceries and like
Wiping everything
alarm
down.
level sanitizing them,
Yeah.
with clean and the dirty and the Lysol and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. Yeah. You are a good mom to Hazel. Like that was, yeah, that it does take just some time to get through some of that guilt, doesn't it? I just
Yeah.
gotta remember that. It has been so nice to chat with you today, Taylor. I have really enjoyed hearing what you've done and how it's been. I'm wondering if there is any last piece of advice you have for us that you would like to share with any lost moms or lost dads, and anything that maybe you would want to share to someone supporting those people.
So, probably the biggest part of our healing journey has been our faith life. And so, if you don't have one, I highly recommend it. um, God can do amazing things for you. And probably the biggest turning point in my healing, we were driving in the car and I was crying like uncontrollably, randomly, like you do in those first few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And Tad's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I just miss our daughter and still crying. And he's like, was there anything I can do? And I'm like, no, there's not. And then all of a sudden, I like felt like God's voice in my head or something. And he was like, Taylor, something like, don't worry, I have a plan for you. And I was like, totally calmed by that, which is totally not like me because being the nurse type A, I'm like, okay, what is this plan? You need to let me know because I need to okay it and I need to know exactly when and where it's going to happen and what all it entails.
So I can plan for
Um,
it.
yeah, yeah. And so it was weird for me to be comforted by something like that because, oh, normally it'd be like, okay, whatever, you have a plan, good, sure. But I was just so calmed. And so I held on to that forever. I'm just like, God has a plan for me. I don't know what that is, but I'm happy that He does have a plan. And I, pray all the time for strength and healing for us and all the other lost community,
Mm-hmm.
and especially for the people that are, freshly going through it, because that's when you need the strength the most.
Yeah.
It's just such a hard thing to go through. But yeah, for other people, I mean, sending your prayers, sending your honest prayers someone's way, it means a lot and it helps a lot.
Yeah.
And then just, letting them know that you're there for them if they ever want to talk, or maybe tell them, like, whenever you're ready, I'd love to talk about in their baby's name, you know. That way whenever they are ready, they can come to you and talk to you about it, because I think repeating your story over and over again, like, every time it's a little bit another little piece of healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. That is some wonderful advice. Taylor, thank you so much for being here tonight. And once again, please listen to her birth story and Tad's birth story of their sweet Hazel. It's so tender. Thank you again, Taylor.
Thank you.